We're going to get into Michigan State football defensive coordinator Joe Rossi. What is he going to bring to the table in East Lansing? How early can it work? And what players are already made for that system? But first, yes, for the first time in a long time, Michigan State basketball just blows the doors off of a top 10 team, and we are going to celebrate about it and talk about it. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedon and use code LOCKEDON for first deposit match up to $100. It's daily fantasy sports made easy with PrizePicks. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you guys so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. We're going to get into football in segments 2 and 3, talk about the defensive coordinator, what we can expect, how early we can expect a competent, if not competitive, unit on that side of the ball. But first, we're going to talk about that basketball game. Before getting to that, though, hey, again, please rate, review, subscribe. If you ever want to reach out, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. And away we go to talk about that game that was Michigan State 1,000, Baylor 64. Or if you want the real score, that was 88-64 in a game that was just a you-know-what kicking for all 40 minutes. Tom Izzo, he put it a little more eloquently, quote, that was one of our best performances in a long time. So no, Michigan State fans, it was not just getting high on our own supply and saying like, oh my God, that's the first big win this season. I can't remember Michigan State looking that good. This must be the best we've played in a while. No, it's also your Hall of Fame head coach saying that as well. We're going to talk about, what made this game possible, why they were able to win by 20-plus points, the rebounding, the defense, the individual performances. But let's just talk about this game just from a fan perspective. Because, guys, gals, that was just fun. It was a fun game to watch. This was the team that we were promised going into the season, the top 5 team, the team that is laden with senior leadership, the team that has great freshmen coming in, and we got a perfect blend of all of that. I was lucky enough to be at that game on Saturday, and my God, I lost count of the pop moments is what we'll call them, whereas the crowd just and you thought the roof was going to blow off of Little Caesars Arena. Was it any of the countless alley-oops that happened? First half dagger 3-pointers, any of the steals? That game was just enjoyable, guys. It was a good time. And yes, it was a lot of fun watching Michigan State shoot well from beyond 3-point land. 3 of 12 from behind the arc. Shot 63% on the game from the field. But this game was possible because of that nasty, nasty defense that Michigan State really has had all year. It's looked better in some games than others, but by and large, the defense has not been an issue this year, and it is clear that it will be the calling card for this team as the season goes on. But man, did they make the statement heard right off the bat. They bled out the shot clock against Baylor on their very first possession. They held Baylor to just 31% shooting from 3-point land, and well, if you remember, this is the Baylor team that is number one, or rather was number one in the country at 3-point shooting at 46.5%. They went down to 31%. Jalen Bridges, arguably Baylor's best player, he just shot the ball 5 times. I mean, that's how smothering Michigan State's defense was. They let their best player just shoot 5 times. I believe he only made 2 of those shots as well. Jeremy Fears, AJ Hoggard, Tyson Walker, Cohen Carr all had 2 steals in the first half, not just even on the game, but all in the first half. You had 6 different Spartans with blocks. You had 29 points off of those turnovers, and you had 21 points off the fast break as well. And gang, that was how Michigan State was going to win this game. We said beforehand that, hey, you know what? We've seen enough of a sample size to believe that, well, 3-point shooting isn't going to be the way to a victory against a really good Baylor team. Part of that was true. They actually ended up shooting the ball pretty well. Again, 8 of 12 from behind the arc. But, man, they had to get going in transition. And it's been a weird year because Michigan State was outside of the top 300 in tempo so far this year. But, man, oh, man, did they blitz the Bears. It was delightful. Also on the glass, if you listen to our preview episode before this game, Hey, one thing that stuck out about Baylor as well is that they were the 6th best offensive rebounding team in the country coming into this game. I'll say that again. The 6th best offensive rebounding team coming into this game. Michigan State beat them on the boards 29-20, and they only let up 6 offensive rebounds in 25 missed Baylor shots. Now, on the contrary, Michigan State, your Spartans, 8 offensive rebounds, 15 points off those second chances. So, yes, they absolutely, positively made those second opportunities count against Baylor. Now, enough of the defense, the rebounding, the team stuff. Let's get into individual performances as well. Just guys like Tyson Walker, who had his 5th 20-plus point game. He had 5 steals. And just like we said not too long ago, it's very rare to have an opportunity to throw the dagger in the first half of a basketball game. But if there ever was a dagger opportunity, it was any one of those 3-pointers that Tyson Walker buried in the first half. Trey Holloman, great game from him, 11 points, 0 turnovers, and he's now shooting 48% from 3. He went 2 of 3 on Saturday, and look, can he sustain 48% shooting from three-point land? No, almost certainly not. I mean, that is a damn near impossible number to sustain for a college basketball player. But I think we've seen enough. 12 of 25 on the season already. I think we've seen enough to think that, hey, this is a guy that should probably be shooting the ball 4 to 5 times, if not maybe even a little more if he's feeling himself from behind the arc. So, yes, the good start to Trey's season just keeps on rolling. And also, it came against a Power 5 team as well. I know that Alcorn State game was a lot of fun, but it was nice to see him play with some moxie, some confidence against a really good team as well. AJ Hoggard, 14 points, 5 assists, 3 steals. And yes, this is the AJ Hoggard that we have been crying up and down about all season, because that we just knew that this version of AJ Hoggard was there somewhere. And yes, it's a lot easier to play with all that swag, go downhill, play a little looser when you're up 10 points, basically when the game starts. But this is the AJ that we were missing. And no, it wasn't even like a great game from him. He did have 4 turnovers, but man, he was just there. He was present. He was leading this team. He was active for all 40 minutes. It wasn't one of those games where he just shows up for the second half. And actually, let's talk about that second half too, because Baylor did get a little bit of a run going. Was the game ever in doubt? No, of course not. Let's not be ridiculous here. But Baylor did start the second half on, what was it, a 5-0 or a 7-0 run. They got some quick baskets. Their side of the little arena over there was starting to feel themselves. AJ Hoggard was the one to snap them out of that both times that Baylor tried to get anything going in the second half. So, yes, big game for AJ Hoggard. And let's talk about the big men for a little bit as well. That is by far collectively the best game they've had so far this year. Mady Sissoko, 8 rebounds. Carson Cooper with 8 points and 4 rebounds. And then Xavier Booker, just 7 minutes of action, but how about 7 points for you right there? So, yes, that is an efficient, effective little outing there for Xavier Booker. So what does this mean for the rest of the season? You could take it 2 ways. All right, you could look at it through the tournament lens, or what this means as far as net ranking go. And actually, after this game, Michigan State shot up 30-some spots in the net ranking, all the way up to 45 overall. And BartTorvik.com, if you're already worried about the tournament, right now that win has Michigan State on the 6th seed line. And we talked about this before the game, that if Michigan State lost this game, this is one of the last good chances they have against a good team to build that tournament resume. There you go. They got the win. So as of now, I know we got a lot of season left. It's a little more secure than it was when we woke up on Saturday morning to start our weekend. So that's one way you could look at it, of what this means for the rest of the season. Or, hey, if you just don't even care about the tournament right now, you just want to focus on the team as a whole, how about just breaking out of that funk? I mean, again, if you thought it was nice as a fan to see, all these cool pick and rolls, the alley-oops, the transition, the defense, if you thought that was fun for us to watch, imagine how that feels for the actual players. Just self-discovery, knowing that that version of themselves is in fact in there somewhere. Because yes, does this fix the whole season? Oh, does this mean that, hey, that the boys are back, dare I say? Not necessarily. But it does show you that, okay, this is the version of us that was supposed to be here right off the bat. It wasn't all a fluke start to the season. Somewhere inside of us, we do have this team that can hang around and beat anyone. So if it's just for the rah-rah aspect, I think that there really is some substance behind that. All right, we're going to get into the football mix here in a hot second, but first, just need to talk your ear off about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you are looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or it's your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Also, for the holiday season, got to talk your ear off about teamticker.com. The gang at Team Ticker is hooking it up for state fans this holiday season, because when you go to teamticker.com and smash in promo code LOCKEDON, that's going to save $50 off your purchase for the best sports sign there is out there. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, pretty simple. Right now, they're actually showing the weather forecast over in East Lansing. Right now, they also show stats, AP polls, upcoming games for all sports in East Lansing. This is the best sign to have in your man cave, your bathroom, your garage, your kitchen, wherever you want to throw this thing. You are going to impress people. And you might also blow them away too, because, hey, Team Ticker, new company. There's not a lot of people with this sign. So if there's a Michigan State fan in your life, or maybe you are just a Michigan State fan in your life that you want to really hook up, do so you can stick out amongst the crowd. Again, game, that is teamticker.com. Promo code LOCKEDON, all one word, to receive $50 off this holiday season at teamticker.com. There is a very high chance you already know who this guy is, but hey, introduction anyway. It is Chase Glasser of Spartans Illustrated. This man is all about the X's, the O's, and breaking them down just easy enough with someone like a kindergarten mind like myself can easily understand it. Chase, how on earth are you doing, man? We doing okay?
Doing awesome. Doing great.
That's what I'm talking about here. So last time we talked, we were awaiting the defensive coordinator hire. It has been Joe Rossi. And you also said that, well, this is going to be a learning curve because, well, you got to break everything down that you just learned with the last regime here. And then odds are it's going to be a little more complex. And from what I understand so far in your piece at Spartans Illustrated, Mr. Rossi is cutting your workout for you over there. Is that correct?
Yes. I think it's a great hire. I think it's a really, really, really good hire. He's a guy at Minnesota. He was a position coach, I think, at linebackers, and then progressed up to defensive coordinator, I think, in late 2018. Immediately 2019, I think they were a top 10 defense. Step back in 2020, weird year. 2021, very effective defense again. 22, pretty darn good. And then this year they've fallen off a bit for reasons that I don't think are necessarily his doing. I know in the article that we have up there that the stats are correct. I'm just kind of going off the top of my head, but architecturally, this defense is good. It makes a lot of sense. It's varied. He can do a lot of things out of it. And it's a pretty intellectual defense. I think it's going to be something that takes a bit to pick up. But I think people are going to like what they see pretty much immediately.
Excellent. Because there was a dip last year, and a few state fans are a little concerned with that. Is it as easy as, well, hey, they were replacing, what was it? I think it was 7 starters from the year before. And then also, Chase, the Minnesota Gopher offense was atrocious. So that's more time on the field for their defense. Is it just that easy to think of why there was a dip from 22 to 23?
Yeah, I mean, I think in large part that explains it. There's certain things that Rossi does that it makes it a lot more helpful to have older players. So he basically runs you can call it a 4-3, a stand-up 4-3, or a 3-4 with a walk-down linebacker. You've got 3 down linemen, and then you've got a stand-up defensive end that you can either put over the strength of the defense by a tight end or to the weak side of the defense. He moves that stand-up kind of hybrid position around a lot. It's somebody that can carry a player down the seam. If it's a tight end, it's somebody who can rush the passer, get out and cover the flat. And then there's 3 other linebackers that he does a lot with, a lot of different pick stunts, twist blitzes, things like that. a lot of dropping into coverage. He trusts his linebackers in coverage a fair amount, which, you can get matched up and busted when you do that, but it also allows you to throw out some pretty cool coverages from places and formations that maybe you don't normally see that. So when you're talking about stuff like that, it does help to have veteran players. So when you do lose 6 or 7 players, that's going to become extremely apparent. When you have young players, you're going to know. It's a defense that it helps if you've been in it and played in it for a bit, just because it is somewhat complex. But I think that's pretty much most of it. There's certain things where if you have a schematic or a personnel disadvantage, it makes the scheme a lot harder. So the first year at State, I mean, he might take some lumps, and I think he will. But there will be a positive increase, I think, in the efficacy of the defense as soon as he gets kind of his guys in, and some of the more talented players that have stuck around start to progress up a little bit more. So I don't think it's anything to be overly concerned about. And I think that people are going to like what they see from the defense. A lot of varied coverages on the back end. I mean, you have cover 2, 3, 4, a lot of cover 5, which is man under 2 deep, that he runs. And then he runs a lot of split field coverages, cover 6, quarter, half, things like that puts his players in position to succeed. And something that he does quite well that he's spoken at length about is he will mold the defense to the strengths of the players that he has. And I think that's the sign of a good defensive coordinator. You're not going to try to put a square peg in a round hole. He's going to work with what he has, and I think he'll probably have some pieces. So it's a good hire.
Wow. You can actually work around the strengths of your personnel and your roster? Is that right? I thought there was a little stipulation in the Big Ten rulebook that made that illegal, but okay, yeah, we'll give that a try the next few years here under Joe Rossi. Please correct me if I'm wrong with this, by the way, but it felt like with the last scheme, the last regime, there was a lot of reliance on the nickelback position. Mm-hmm. Is it going to be the same under this scheme, you think, or is this more of just the linebacker core as a whole? Or, to make it a simple question, what's the most important position or position group under Rossi?
Good question. I mean, so he does run a nickel, so there will be a nickel back. That position's not going away. It's mm-hmm. They say in 2023, pretty much all defenses played out of the nickel. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I mean, you do have to be cognizant of stopping the pass, obviously, and looking at that a lot more than you did maybe in previous eras of the game. I think if you look at what he's done on defense, Tyler Nubin, Antoine Winfield Jr., one of those guys is an NFL player. The other one will be. He's had really good safeties, and he does a lot with the safeties as far as using them in run support, using them in robber coverage, and then, kind of your normal safety duties. A lot is asked of safeties in this defense, but I think that Michigan State has some bodies that could be pretty promising there. So that's something that's very important. Linebackers, I mean, he asks quite a bit of the linebackers. It's hard to say that any position on the defense is more important than the defensive line, just because if you can consistently win those one-on-one battles up front, it just makes everything flow so much easier and look so much easier. And he does, to that end, use a lot of different fronts. He'll pull out most of it out of a 4-3. He'll pull out, even, odd, over, under, all that different type of stuff to just try to mess with the landmarks that the offensive line has in run blocking. So it's tough to isolate one position, but I would look at those linebackers as a point of you're going to be able to see what is asked of them pretty much immediately, and from there kind of project what the efficacy of the defense is going to be.
Just looking at Michigan State's roster right now, which in the transfer portal day, like everything could change an hour after we're done talking. So this could be an entirely moot point. Might have to edit this whole question out, but we'll see.
Right.
Are there any players on the roster right now you think benefit more under Rossi than they would with the last staff? Or on the contrary, do you see a glaring hole as like, oh no, they don't really have the personnel to do what Rossi has done previously here? What are we looking at from a
also staying on the linebackers? I think you can draw a pretty clear line of demarcation between Cal Halliday and Jordan Hall. I mean, Jordan Hall is going to be an important part, assuming he would stay and everything like that, an important part of whatever defensive coordinators coming in. And I think that that's particularly the case in this regime, just because so much is going to be asked of him as far as his skill set. He's smart. very athletic. He's going to be used as a blitzer a lot. He's going to be used in coverage, a lot of lateral movement, two gapping, things like that. A lot's going to be asked of him. And I think that his skill set works really well with what he's asked to do in this defense. Less so, I think, a player shaped like Cal Halliday, where just in coverage, I mean, he and Ben Van Sumeren are on a lot of people's highlight reels for the last couple of years. And I mean, that Michigan game was just isolating Cal Halliday in coverage. And, he was getting ripped just because he doesn't have the shape to do that. If we're in 1996, he's, first team all Big Ten and he's going pretty high in the draft. It's a different ball game now. And that's where, I mean, defenses can get in trouble when they go way too late in the rear to try to stop the pass. And then you have teams like Georgia's done it. Michigan's done it to a lesser extent, where it's innovation by kind of going back in time and saying everybody's, putting out these 190-pound linebackers because they're super fast to stop the pass. We're going to throw out 3 tight ends and go at you. So, it's a tough line to walk with a linebacker just because you're asked to do so much and you're asked to take on a lead block and then also drop into coverage. But when you have that athletic versatility of somebody like a Jordan Hall, I think that's so important. So that's going to be used a lot. I do wonder that kind of stand-up defensive end, that hybrid position, a guy like Aaron Brule, I thought would be perfect for this, or like a Jacoby Windman. Now, Brule, I believe, is out of eligibility, and I think Windman's in the portal. So perhaps he'll come back. I don't know. I don't pretend to know. But if you don't have a body there, I wonder what they will do. And you could probably, maybe they have someone on staff that they're thinking about, like a Zion Young maybe, or somebody like that. I don't know if he's quite the right shape to do what they want him to do, or maybe you're looking at the portal. But I don't know if they necessarily have somebody who's going to be able to fill that role where you're asked to kind of be a chess piece and move all over the field. So those are a couple, I guess, maybe things to watch. That stand-up end spot, the linebacker spot. I think the secondary is going to be pretty much fine. It's there'll be busts and stuff, but you've got a lot of young players back there, so I'm not too terribly worried about that long term. I think a guy like Jaden Mangum in the secondary, just with how athletic he is and how physical he is somebody that Rossi's going to like quite a bit. So there's definitely pieces.
Yeah, I want to stick with pass coverage talk here because you talk about a thorn in Michigan State fans' side the last few years. And look, I know it wasn't all entirely the scheme. Like, some of it was because of lack of pass rush. When it's that bad, it's a lot of reasons why things have gone completely off the rails the way they did. But from a schematic standpoint, what's the biggest difference that we could see under Rossi's system than what we were seeing, or I guess not seeing, under Hazelton's system last few years?
Split field coverages, I would say. So that's, I mentioned cover 6 earlier, and that's basically you draw a line down the middle of the field, normally towards the boundary. You're going to be playing cover 2. So you have a guy playing a deep half and then a squat corner, just kind of playing in the flat. And then on the other side, the boundary side, you're going to be playing like a cover 4, where you have 2 people each playing in a deep fourth, and then some players underneath. And then there's a lot of different stuff that you can do with that. And a lot of times what Rossi will do is they will put on a call for a split field coverage, and then the players themselves kind of figure it out on the field. And I watched a clinic of his where basically he will have the safeties are kind of the captains of the defense, and it works its way up. So the safeties align, they count out the wide receivers on each side. Hey, we have 1 and 2 over here. We have 1, 2, 3 over here. And then everybody bumps to make sure that everybody's aligned correctly. You're going to move your linebackers to be over number 2 and 3, and then you're going to kind of call out your coverage from there. And that's everything like that. That's all done pre-snap, but post-alignment, which is really good. And then you'll have the defensive lines able to stem right at the line of scrimmage. And there's just a lot that you can do there as far as quarterbacks. They're getting to the line and they don't necessarily know what they're going to look at until everybody's lined up. So that kind of variance in coverage, I think, is going to be a welcome change. And it will come. It's a necessary transition cost. There's going to be busts. It's going to happen. Yeah. But that's year 1 of a new defensive system. It's going to happen. But I think that the overall architecture is much better constructed so that you're not dying this death by 1,000 cuts, where It's 3rd and 7, and that there's going to be a couple of guys open kind of in those well-documented holes in cover 2 or cover 3. It's just, I think it's going to be, you're going to have to beat them. They're not going to beat themselves by alignment, by assignment. You're going to have to go out and beat them at least by the end of the season. And I think that in the first year of a new system, in a program that's in a fair amount of flux, that's as best as you can ask for. And I certainly think that you're going to get that.
There we go, because that kind of leads into the last question, which was probably the hardest question. You could even punt on this one because I don't even know if you can answer this. But look, he took over in 2018, halfway through the season. The defense turned around immediately. The next year, top 10 defense, then another top 10 defense. So it was pretty instant success over there. And yes, you do play in the Big Ten West. That, has some benefits as well. But is this a defense where we can start expecting results in year one, and maybe not, top 10 in the nation, especially with, that little patch in the schedule where you have Oregon, Ohio State, and Michigan all in straight weeks. But is this something where we can immediately see something with the personnel they already have, or is this going to have to be a wait and see sort of thing here?
Yeah. So, I think you have to define your parameters of success. Like top 10 in the country, probably not. Upper half of the Big Ten. Okay, let's have a conversation.
Sure.
And also, I think relative success, where I certainly think their counting stats are going to be better than they were last year and the year before and the year before. But, I think that you're going to see relative success pretty quickly. As far as kind of overall objective success, you might have to wait a bit more. But immediately, I think you're going to see the things that you want to see from a defense like that, where you're talking about people are playing assignment football. There's variances in coverage. There's a lot of moving parts. They're throwing out different formations. They're throwing out different looks, different coverages, and they're trying different things. And they either are working now or have a good shot of working down the line. When you compare that to what you've been looking at for the last 3 or 4 years, you're going to see relative success, I think, in game one.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's all I needed to hear. Okay, just something to smile about moving forward into the week here. So that's great.
Yeah.
Guys, again, you already know Chase Glasser. He does great work at Spartans Illustrated, breaks it all down with his film room pieces when he's not being dragged on this show to talk about it. So really, really do appreciate your time, your knowledge, and go subscribe to Spartans Illustrated. And Chase, before we let you go, enjoy the rest of your week. Anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to leave us with here?
No, I just think, it's ever since D'Antonio kind of retired, I think the program has been in a bit of an identity crisis. And what do we want to do? What do we want to be, the portal team? Do we want to, what are we trying to do? And I think just kind of getting back to blue collar, hard work. We're going to, have a good scheme. We're going to, alignment, assignment, play sound football, not beat ourselves. Just everything is, I think, pointing in the right direction in that regard. I think Smith is on record saying I think he's a very good hire. I think Rossi's a good hire. And just overall, I know Haller's taken some arrows, but you've got a hockey team that's number one in the Big Ten. And they're a fun watch. And I think that these coaches, they very much kind of the trend of coaches that Haller's hired across the athletic department, young, solid culture, good dudes. You don't hear too much about Adam Nightingale either way. I guess you hear a lot good about him, but he's not necessarily an overly showy guy, and I don't think Smith is either. But the proof is in the pudding, and the results that are being put out. And I just think the overall health of Michigan State athletics is on the upswing, and there's a lot to be excited about. So.
The most flash that we've seen from Nightingale so far on social media is that, like, hey, he has a pizza oven.
Yeah,
that's great. All right. Whoa. Oh, well, slow down over there, Adam. Oh, man. So, yeah, it's
getting a little crazy.
Pretty chilly. Yeah. Whoa. So, yeah, no, it's a good time, though. Yeah. Well, for most sports, at least. But, Chase, always appreciate you, as always. And, gang, listeners, viewers, you guys are truly the best. Love every single one of you. We'll see you tomorrow. You know what this is. Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white, 5 days a week. Love you all. Go green.